All right, what do you think you know about fishing? Well, let's talk about it and how you can better the tactics, knowing the behavior, the environment, and just developing those skills to become a better fisher.
All right. Now that we're by all the fishing stuff, what do I use all this stuff for? And frankly, what do I need it for? Well, let's watch a quick video showing you how to do that.
Something to kind of take in mind, especially if you're flipping and pitching a grass line, is to not necessarily fish it the way you normally would if you're pitching it. Because a lot of times if those fish are up in there on bed, they're not going to hit it on that initial fall. They're going to want it sitting there for a little minute before they decide they want to pick it up and swim it off of their bed if that's what they're doing. So that's just something to take into mind when you're flipping and pitching a grass line around the time of spawn.
So now that we've watched the video, what are some of the things that we can take in consideration from what we've learned from what he said? So one thing is flipping. Let's talk a little bit about flipping and what he means. This flipping. What do I use for flipping? I don't even know what you're talking about, Tommy. Well, flipping is something that we use to explain how we're going to find those largemouth. Now, largemouth are a very structure-oriented fish. They like to sit under cover. They like to ambush their prey as they're hiding under something. So a way that you can get them to react is something like a craw style bait or even a beaver style bait. Well, now let's talk about when do I throw this or this or this or this down the line. I don't know. When am I supposed to throw it? Let's find out.
What are like some of the things you should look for in the environment for the fish?
Well, the first thing you look for is whether or not it's clean. You want to fish in a body of water that's not polluted. You want to see clean water, not dirty water with trash floating in it. That's an indicator that there's probably not a healthy fish population, and it's not that fun to look at. One of the first things you can look for is the surrounding area to see if there's litter, how close it is to any kind of industry, but the condition of the water. If most of the bodies of water in your area are fairly clear, and the one you're trying to fish is really cloudy, there's a good chance that it's got a lot of algae in it. There's probably pollution. But you look for healthy weeds, healthy trees around the shoreline. Those kind of things will tell you it's probably a good place to fish.
And what are some of the environments that we have that you can fish around us?
In the upper Midwest, we have all kinds of different environments that we can fish in. When you look at the lakes around us, we have all the different types of lakes. We have some reservoirs, but more importantly, the natural lakes we have fall into three categories. Oligotrophic, which would be your newest kind of lake. It's very deep, it's really clear, and it's really rocky. That's when you're going to find your largemouths, but more your smallmouths related to drop-offs and rocky structure. The second is a little bit older type of lake. It's called a mesotrophic lake. And mesotrophic lakes have a mix of deep, clear water, rocky structure, but they've also started to fill in with sediment, so you're going to have some shallower areas, you're going to have some gravelly areas, you're going to have more weed cover. So those are the best kind of lakes to fish because you can fish different kinds of structure and cover in one day. What we have a lot of around here, especially with the smaller lakes, are called eutrophic lakes, and that's where they've filled in with sediments over the years. Maybe at one point they were 40 to 60 feet deep. Now they might be 15 to 20 feet deep, and the whole bottom is sort of a silt, and there's lots and lots of weeds and lots of cover, probably a lot of fallen trees. That water is generally not as clear, and it's got more algae growth and weed growth. But if it's a clean, healthy eutrophic lake, those are the fun ones to fish. You can frog fish on those mats of weeds. You can do a lot of shallow water, cover fishing. So you have to look at what kind of environment you're in. If it is a really new type oligotrophic lake, you're probably going to be doing a lot of crankbaits, a lot of lipless crankbaits, looking for suspended fish, look for fish on drop-offs because the drop-offs are there. On the mesotrophic lakes, you can use your whole tackle box. You can use everything in it, fish in different depths, fish in different types of cover. But then on the eutrophic lakes, you're going to be more restricted to plastic worms, shallow running crankbaits, top water, and that kind of thing. So knowing the different kind of lakes you're going to fish will help you formulate a strategy on how to fish.
Now that we have learned the understanding of the fish and understanding of their environment, we can take those into our consideration of how I might work this beaver, or even how I might work this chatterbait. So now let's talk about how I can do that. So let's dive into that.
Okay, we're gonna use my little friend, the bass that I have, as an example. So this is his favorite spot in the fish tank, and as you can see, he likes it in between these two leads. Why? I don't know. They kind of just pick and choose where they like, but this is his spot. So then we can apply that to the lake, knowing what the fish want to relate to. Some relate to docks, some relate to weeds, some want, brush in the water. And even in those different zones, the fish will react differently to different things. Now, if you're fishing brush, you want to use something like these. These are plastics, or you can use something like this jig. Now, if you're fishing grass or something like that, you can resort to the plastics, or you can throw something like this chatterbait, or there's a swim jig. It's kind of like the same thing, but without the last thing would be a drop-off. Now, a drop-off is where one water it can be from 6 feet, and then it can drop to 8, or even go from 6 to 10, depending on where that is. Okay, now depending on how warm the water is or how cold the water is, you're going to use these baits differently. So this is a jerk bait. If it's warmer water, I would do more fast twitches, and if it's colder water, I do slower with a little more time in between my pauses with my twitch. Now this, pretty simple. Just roll it either slower or faster depending on how cold the water is, and it's just going to swim kind of like a little fish. Now there are two techniques we can use for this one. Either yo-yoing it or just rolling it back, and that's going to depend also. And now that you understand the environment, understand the fish, and the tactics to use, go out, have some fun, but most of all, learn that it takes experience, time, and learning from other people, whether that be a friend, your mom, your dad, or even a cousin, or Joe Schmo on the internet. Just go out, have some fun.